Hey everyone, this is Chris and Sandy with the Chris and Sandy Show, where you get up close and personal with some amazing guests throughout the entertainment industry. And today, like I say on every episode, we had a great one for you. Who do we have?
Oh, we're so excited to have country artist Michelle Wright with us. It's the 30-year anniversary of her album Now and Then that had such hits as He Would Be 16 and the song that changed everything, Take It Like a Man. With the release of her newest project, Milestone, she showcases the distinctive musical style that has been the hallmark of her career.
And we're going to talk about all that and then some.
More.
So welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. How fun. We were visiting it before we pushed the live on air.
Yes.
It's delightful to meet you too. And I know you've got busy lives and family lives. And thank you for taking the time to help someone like myself and other artists get this opportunity to say hi and talk about the new music. Thank you.
It's definitely a pleasure. Now, I always like to start the show out kind of same way. Last couple of years have been rough for a lot of people, but especially entertainment. So looking back, how did you kind of maneuver through this time frame? How did it affect you?
Boy, it's such a mixed bag, because on one hand, my husband and I were home and we were just loving life, and thank God we love each other and love being together, because I know for some people that was a little more challenging, but
yes,
we enjoyed our time together. And then there got a point where I was really missing just that energy that is what I do, being with my band guys and hustling through the airport and getting go, and dealing, and being with the fans, because of course that live show is magical. My band and I have said more times than others when we've had a challenging day just to get to a show, boy, we'll get off the stage after the show was done and we'll just look at each other and say, well, that was worth every struggle to get there. So I started to really miss that. But what I then thought, I decided then to start writing via social media. So I started writing that way so I could connect with my songwriters again. And then actually, as a result of being home and COVID, I then ended up putting together the Milestone record. And when my manager and I went, you know what? This year is the 30th anniversary of Take It Like a Man. And I went, you know what? I've got all these really cool songs and songs I've been holding on to. Let's put a record together. So we ended up being able to celebrate this milestone with the Milestone record. And I think in the best way I could possibly imagine.
Wow.
Awesome.
That's like for us, we launched this show January of 2020 with the intention of first year, maybe 100 interviews, thought we could do that, be a great foundation to build on. And then everything gets shut down and I'm watching the whole music industry just collapse. And I was like, now people may have time for us as a brand new show that wouldn't normally have a time for us with a brand new show. I was like, this could be our blessing in disguise. So we stepped it up and we ended up doing 300 interviews that year. And we're at almost 600 now.
I was just going to say, how did that go? Wow. Fabulous. Well, that's wonderful. And of course, needless to say, I know we were all suffering, struggling. I know that mentally, even for just knowing the struggle that the world was under, and the economics. So the other side of that was definitely heartbreak, wasn't it? Yeah. And just concern for people and the struggle, and so, hopefully, I certainly, I don't really watch the news much, but I think we're getting on the other side of it in a pretty big way.
It looks that way because last year was the worst part. I mean, I remember when Delta came through, there were like over 50 people that I was connected to that all passed away in a 3-month span when the Delta came through. But thank God it looks like we're over it. And I remember when all this started, Sandy actually did some research on the 1918 pandemic. And she says, well, I know everybody says we're going to be in this for a few weeks. She goes, but based on past, we're going to be in it for 2 to 2.5 years.
Wow.
And that's exactly where we're at, 2.5 years. Wow. So, it was right on the money at that. They just eventually get to the point where it becomes more of a flu.
Yeah. Well, We've been out there doing shows again, and people are getting out and they're singing and they're dancing, and we're all trying to get back to life as we once knew it, to the best of our ability,
Right.
Now, you've been doing music for a long time. But think back years before, as you were getting started. A lot of people would ask, when did you know you wanted to do music? But I always like to go deeper than that. When did it kind of click for you that this could be a career?
Well, I was raised on country music. My mother and father were both country music singers and performers. So we're farmers from a small farming community called Marilyn, Ontario, just across the border from Detroit. And my parents would play local dances and weddings and the Moose Lodge, and we had the Kinsmans and the Kinnets up in Canada. I don't know if you guys have the Kinsmans and the Kinnets down here, but it's like a kind of a Moose Lodge type of organization and what have you. So my parents would play all of these different events locally. And so I grew up around music and band practice, and our garage on the farm, my mom would have her band over there, and it was for band practice, and it was full of drums and the speakers and the amplifiers and microphones, and my brother, and she gave us carte blanche to go in and play around. So my brother and I would go in there, and he played guitar, and and my mother played bass, and I by process of elimination ended up on the drums. So and Carpenter was a huge influence, right? And I was like, okay. And so I started out playing drums, and we did some jamming in the garage, and we did a few little public school performances with my mom and sang like Satin Sheets and Bobby McGee and House of the Rising Sun and songs like that, And then when I was 17, I joined my first professional band where I started making a little bit of money on the weekends. The band called the Marquees. And then I moved on to like the real popular band in town. When I was about 18, and they were called the Melody Ramblers. Okay. And but by this time I'm leaving for college. But when I was 19, I went to college, and I continued playing with the Melody Ramblers. And then I was playing with them one weekend, and a booking agent from Michigan by the name of Paul Wade was in the audience in this completely unsuspecting little town that we were playing in. Would you have ever imagined that a big American booking agent would be sitting in the audience up in Canada? And he came to me after the first set. He said, would you come and sit with my wife and I'd like to talk to you. And so I did. And he said, hey, I've got some touring bands that could sure use a girl singer like you. Would you be interested in coming and touring my clubs with one of my bands? And so I said, well, let me go talk to my mom and dad. Let me finish my first year of college and let me come and audition. And so by April, I went and auditioned. I got the job. And by I was actually, I turned my 21st birthday was the first week I was on the road in July. I turned 21 years old, my first week on the road, and that was in Muscatine, Iowa. And I wrote a song called Reaching for the Stars that week. And it's, my life lies before me. I'm young and I'm free. And I know there's one thing that's a part of me. As long as I'm singing and playing my guitar, I'll keep on reaching for the stars. And that's on my very first album, Do Right By Me. So, dear, I'm giving you a really long answer to this because it is a long question to answer, because, you start out as a kid, as a teenager, just jamming and playing, and maybe thinking a little bit about it. And then the next thing you get hired by a touring band. And then the next thing you get your first album out. Like 5 years later, I put my first album out. And then I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe. And then the next thing I know, like 9 years of playing the clubs 6 nights a week, I got my record deal with Arista Records. So it was not an overnight success, but I guess I started dreaming the dream for real when I took that first gig up.
So Joe asked how many tractors you own.
A few. We had a few. My parents were farmers, combines, tractors, John Deere tractors, and we had an old Massey Ferguson and some Ford tractors, and
I love that.
Love it.
As you know, a lot of people, they see the glory in what you do, but they don't see the grind, the sacrifice, the tears, the struggles it takes to make it to the top of any industry, really, but especially entertainment. And I always kind of want to talk about that side of it, because nobody really does. They just gloss over it, think if you got the talent, you'll make it. But we both know that there's a lot of people that are broke as can be, and they're better than a lot of the singers that's out. So take us there. Tell us a little bit about the sacrifices you had to make at the beginning, and now what the kind of sacrifices you're having to make now that you're making a new album.
Yeah. Well, you know, are taking the words right out of my mouth that I often speak, that I hear people that are so talented and they just don't get the breaks. So I never for a moment take for granted that God only knows why I got the breaks and somebody else didn't. I will tell you, I worked very, 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 very hard. Many, many, many years out there on the road, 6 nights a week. And then, you know, when the record deal came, the big deal here in like I said, 9 years playing the clubs and loading up the, you know, just doing that. And I loved it. There were hard times. I remember just wondering, oh my gosh, you know, I was 30 years old, I think, when I got my record deal. Yeah. And then, you know, I'm thinking, okay, girl, you know, I get to that point where they don't give out record deals anymore. So thank God it came when it did. And then certainly even after that, you know, I remember at one point, and I've heard different artists talk about this. I think of Shania Twain, for example. Now, mind you, I understand that she was at a level that few of us reach, but I you know, there's a degree of it that is comparable. And I heard even Terry Clark, you know, talking about, my gosh, in the heyday, you're just going 24/7. You almost aren't even in the moment. You know, you're so busy just getting it done. And there was a point where I reached a point of exhaustion and had to just say to my team, I just gotta stop talking about me and doing this for a little bit. But my hard work, even the musicians, so some of those road musicians I worked for or worked with, they showed up every day and did their jobs. You know, they don't necessarily get the glory like I did, that's for sure. Now, I did end up taking my road band with me to Nashville when I got my record deal, and I've still got one of those original members from 30 years ago.
Wow.
And some of them stayed with me 15, 20 years and then got married and came off the road and all the rest. So my hard work, my musicians' hard work, and certainly the team around me is why I'm still standing today. There's no doubt. And I continue to work very hard. I'm a farmer's daughter. I'm just not, I can't sit around. It's how boring is doing nothing, you know.
Well, there's a song. I'm a farmer's daughter instead of, you know, the coal miner's daughter, farmer's daughter.
I could write that.
You should write it. That would be a cool one to really, because, you know, she's actually from Kentucky, where she was a coal miner's daughter.
Yes, and a preacher's
daughter.
Oh, that's that one. Wow. So that's so cool. Well, let me just, in conclusion, if there are any younger people that are watching, just be prepared to give it your best and give it your all and work hard. And you know what will be, but it's not going to fall into your lap.
Right.
And that's the thing I think a lot of people, that's why I always like to talk about this side of it a little bit within our show, because a lot of people, they jump in and they're not prepared for what's about to happen. I mean, the entertainment industry will eat you. I mean, even what we do, you know, with this show, you know, to get the 600 interviews and to get some of the guests we've had on, I probably get 200 emails turn downs every month. You know, and
that's part of the process.
But then I get enough to keep the show going, and then the next month I will email the same people that said no last month.
That's right.
The next month I will email the same people that said there's been people I've emailed 7, 8, 9 times, their teams, and then finally one will say, you know what? We'll give you 15 minutes. We'll get
10 minutes sometimes.
You know, and we take what we can get.
Oh, great! Yeah, that's it. It's wonderful, and I want to congratulate you guys, because that's why you're standing still, isn't it? Your heart. Yeah.
And it's fun, you know. Again, you know, like we were talking about the work ethic and all that. Although people don't see what we have to do around the show, they see what happens on the show, and we love this. This is where I shine. This is where we shine, and this is like a passion. But the getting to this point sometimes, I mean, like there are moments where like, okay, I hope the guest is, that's like, okay, the sometimes the teams forget to email me to confirm that, okay, I got the link, got that. And I'm like, well, we'll be there. Don't know if the guest will be. And there's sometimes the guest is not there. We've had one incident where a guest actually, now we weren't video this time, so they probably wouldn't have done this if it was video. We were used to be audio only when we started, but we even had a guest ghost us in the middle of the show.
Uh-oh.
Yes.
Peace out.
And I've had some people say, well, maybe it was internet. I was like, I emailed and texted them for several days. We ain't heard. We to this day never heard back from that person.
And you're trying not to take it personally, I'm sure.
so we've, so we got, and again, I'm glad that we go through at least a piece of what y'all go through, because if we worked for a radio station and all that, a lot of the hosts on the bigger shows, they don't go through what we go through. Because the show already has it lined up. They got that. All they got to do is show up. We have to do all the work.
Well, I hear you. Well, again, congratulations. It is like any job, isn't it? I mean, I know a lot of the listeners just they're getting up every day and making their jobs.
Yep.
Too. So we're all in there doing,
we're all in it together.
We certainly are. And in a lot of, Sandy and I were talking, she just sort of sat down about 30 seconds before we went live. Like, so I'm like, were you doing like I am, trying to get the laundry done and the thing done?
Exactly. I did some laundry
together here before you sit down. You were sharing your babies settled in, and gosh, we're all out there making it happen. And it's a very fulfilling thing, isn't it? When it comes to when you can lay down at the end of the day and go, well, I did the best I could.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. So we talked a little bit about the grind side, the sacrifice side. So let's flip the script and go the other way. What are some wow moments for you? And we'll end this segment with the new album. So start with some of the few wow moments.
Well, I'll tell you, there have been many. There have been many, many, many. And, certainly winning my first female vocalist of the year up in Canada in 1990 was amazing. Doing the Jay Leno show just blew my mind. Like, I'm sitting here with Jay. What's going on, Jay? And then... winning the Academy of Country Music's new artist at the ACM was something I just couldn't believe had happened to me. Singing at the World Series, the Jays and the Atlanta Braves, being inducted into the Canadian Country Music Hall of Fame.
Wow.
And sharing the stage and doing shows with Merle Haggard. I will never forget. I'm like, I am on the same stage with Merle Haggard. Like, he's on the stage. And I'm like, like watching him. But I mean, I went on before he did. That was one of the biggest thrills.
I bet. Was that tough for you to sing with him right there?
No, I wanted so much I don't even know if he heard me. I have no idea. I do know I went on his bus and I got my picture taken with him and got my autograph picture and all that sort of stuff. And so I don't know if he even heard me, but although I will tell you something, somebody that used to work with him that I just did a little thing with recently, he said, Merle Haggard knew exactly who you were and he loved you. You were fabulous. I'm just like, oh no, you're just blowing smoke. But anyhow, if that's true, so that to share the stage with Merle and so many artists. I have the most amazing record autograph collection, you guys, from you name it, from George Strait. I toured with Kenny Rogers and George Strait in Alabama, and so get me going on all the wow moments. And I could just go on for
because a lot of people think once you become famous within an industry that you no longer have these heroes and all that, but you do. You still have all this that you look up to. That again, it doesn't matter how high you get. I wouldn't doubt that Blake Shelton probably has a ton of people that he just gets around and almost can't talk.
Oh, I know it. You know it. He's absolutely. He's as real as and as genuine and authentic as the rest of us. And you know that he. I was in the elevator one time with Miranda Lambert, and she said, Michelle, Blake he has such a crush on you. And I was like, oh, yay. Blake Shelton has a crush on me. Of course, I can't talk when I get around Keith Urban. So that's my what? I can't talk right now.
So he's going to invite you on stage.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
I could probably sing with him. I just don't know if I could talk.
Yeah.
I love that. You know, a lot of people, they see you, but they don't see the teams around you and the other artists and all that. And we always like to talk about that side because teams never get love. But on our show, they get love because they are the village that keeps it all together. So take a few moments and just tell us about the team that helps you be who you are.
Well, I'll tell you what, my guy, you guys, I had the same management team for 28 years. Brian Ferryman and his wife, Sue Ferryman, and they came with me from Canada when I got my record deal. Unfortunately, Sue got ALS, and we lost her in 2014. And then my manager got Lewy body dementia, and I took care of him for his last couple of years of his life because his wife was gone and his kids are, had moved out of town, and just, they needed me to be there, and they were there as much as they could be as well. But I took care of my manager, Brian, and that man, I'm going to cry. So that guy, sorry. Oh boy, that's funny. Whew. We worked together for 28 years.
Wow.
And helped me develop and create the career that I had.
Wow.
And I was so blessed beyond my imagination because that relationship was loving, was professional. I always trusted him. I always knew, and his wife, I always knew that when they said they were going to do something, they did it. And I did too. When I said I was going to do something, I did it. We counted on each other. Now my bags and my eyes are going to get worse since I'm crying. And then when Brian passed away, I worked for like about 9 months on my own thinking, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I'm like, I'll work in the office. I'll do months into this. I went, this job is not meant for the artist to do. So Chuck Thompson is my new manager now. Chuck was involved with the Judd's team for many, many, many years, and he's worked with so many artists. This man he's got a remarkable career and worked at RCA and on. And just coincidentally, I had gone to a new T-shirt manufacturing company. And Chuck happened to be stopping in there to do something for one of his artists. And the David mentioned to Chuck that, Michelle Wright was here. And Chuck said, well, what's she up to these days? And I had told David of my loss of my manager. And Chuck gave him his card. And he said, well, just have her call me if she wants to talk. Wow. And so that was about, so I'm thinking that's been a few years ago now, at least 6 years ago or so. Because Brian had started to get sick before, and Chuck and I started to work together before he passed on. But Chuck came on board, and I love this man, and I'm so thankful. Him and I come from the same point of view, and he doesn't blow smoke up my skirt, and we're doing everything that we can together to make the most of my career. And I have another great friend and another person that I can trust on my side. And so, my new record label too, that I just signed with for the new record, these guys are incredible. So yeah, management's treating me good, and the new record is out there now. And without the team, it's impossible. It's impossible.
So tell us about the new record.
Well, the record is called Milestone. And that name, Chuck and I were just talking one day about what do you want to call the record? And I said, wow, it's quite a milestone at this point. Boom.
There it is.
Chuck went, well, let's call it Milestone. I went, well, let's call it. Some decisions you agonize over for like weeks. You go, okay, that'll do. Boom, on to the next, So this record, we redid Take It Like a Man, re-recorded Take It Like a Man, but we didn't mess with it. We didn't change anything about it because people had no need to change anything. We just recording technology and fidelity has changed since.
Tech's a lot better now.
It is. I mean, I guess that's a point of view, really, isn't it? Because there's really something about those sounds of those records then. But there's also the crisp punchy sound that we get from our records today. So we redid Take It Like a Man and used 4 of the 6 original musicians. And Lonnie Wilson was the drummer on the original Take It Like a Man. And he used the same snare drum 30 years later that he used on the track. And I remember when we were cutting Take It Like a Man, Lonnie came out of the booth and he said, "Man, if that's not a hit, I'm going to go sell shoes for a living." So right, and he's never had to sell shoes for a living, not just because that was a hit, of course, because he's an incredible musician, but I really enjoyed that. I remember logging that because I needed a hit. And I remember logging in my head when he said, "That's a ding dang hit right there." And so we re-recorded that one. And then we have 9 other new tracks on there, 4 of them that I co-wrote, a handful of them that a few actually that I've held on to for 15, 20 years, guys. And I finally recorded them. Loving This Day is a song that I've had for 20 years. Everything and More is a song I wrote when I met my husband some 20 years ago. The Faithless Kind is a song that I've had for probably 25 years, and I finally recorded it. I went into my treasure trove because I was like, this record is so special, and I've got to put the songs that I really believe in, that I really love. So the album's got fun on it. It's got tempo on it. It's got songs that'll just make you go, "Oh my God," right in the heart parts, and everything across the board. It's country, it's soul, it's R&B, it's a little, because that's where I come from. My parents were country singers and I was raised across the border from Detroit. So just listen to Take It Like a Man and you can sort of hear that groove, R&B vibe that I like. Well, so this record really celebrates that as well as the country side of my influences.
Love that. Now we were speaking of teams a while ago. We've got a third co-host, our little 10-year-old. That comes on and asks a few questions. So Sandy's going to go get him.
I can't believe
I'll
it.
go get him.
He's been on almost every episode. So while we're waiting,
let me say that is so unique and so original that I just cannot wait to meet this young man.
He's been on almost every episode because we homeschool, so we got time to bring him in and all of that, and he loves it. In fact, next year he's wanting to start his own little podcast show. We already got the name called Chit Chat with Chris.
That's so cool.
So we're trying to prepare him for that. He started out asking one question to each guest when we were audio. When we moved to video, I think we moved it up to two sometimes, and now we're at 3 questions. So we're preparing him.
I'm so excited. I cannot wait.
So while we're waiting on him to come in, what's kind of next for you?
Well, you know what, Joe? We are so smack dab. We're releasing a Heartbreak Song is a release from that's just got released from the new album. And I co-wrote the song with Adam Scott Wakefield. And Adam, well, actually, he's Adam Wakefield. He was actually the second runner-up on The Voice, and he's with the band. He's a band called with Texas. He's with the band. I'm anxious now because I want to talk to you. Talking too fast. Let me just say that the new single, as I said, is "Heartbreak Song." I wrote with Adam Wakefield. He's a member of the Texas Hill Band and of course a second runner-up at The Voice. And he used to play in my band, so I was so proud to see him.
Oh wow.
And we've just finished the video for that song as well. So we're getting ready to release that. So really what is next for me besides continuing to do shows? We're really in the thick of this record. I don't want to move on to anything else, but just stay focused on this record and let everybody know about it and celebrate it. So that's the real focus right now, and doing shows. Yeah.
Hi, Michelle. So what's favorite food?
Hello, how are you? What did you just say? You said what, honey?
I said, what's your favorite food?
What's my favorite food?
Mm-hmm.
Well, my husband is Italian and he makes the most amazing marinara sauce, which is just a red sauce, right? Just with lots of garlic and lots of tomatoes. So that is absolutely my favorite pasta, or I like to put it on vegetables. But a close second is pizza with pineapple. So
what's your favorite?
What's your
favorite is pizza.
Yes, me too. Do you put pineapple on your pizza?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, do you? Right?
Yeah.
Some people say you're not supposed to. Well, I disagree.
Yeah, it's funny because he has always been pepperoni or supreme was always his faves when people would ask, and they would say, well, what about pineapple? He's, I'd never tried it. And he got asked so many times unless he finally tried it and he likes it.
I like that sweet and that salt is nice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what's your TV show?
What's my favorite TV show? Wow. You want to know? I'm a little kooky. I watch at the end of the day, because we work pretty hard around my world here between the music and my husband's business that keeps us pretty busy. So at the end of the day, I like to watch a lot of stuff. We like to watch a lot of different series and things like that. But when I want to just have a relaxing, goofy, silly time, I like to watch Steve Harvey's Family Feud.
I like that.
I just like
Steve Harvey's one of my dream guests for the show.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Because there's a lot of stuff we watch. And I must confess, I'm a little bit of a TV addict when I can.
Because what's yours?
Mine is SpongeBob.
SpongeBob?
Yes.
Oh, excellent. Excellent.
Right.
Okay, so what's your movie?
My favorite movie. Oh, these things are way too hard to answer, honey. Favorite things like that are just too hard to pick up. Favorite movie. What would be that? Gosh, you want to know what's kind of embarrassing? I'm going to be truthful about something. I don't retain movies very well. Like after I've watched a movie, I sort of don't retain it. I sort of like move along. What would be my I can't name that because I don't. Have you got another question for me?
Because what's yours?
Because mine is Minions.
Oh, very good, very good. Well, I just can't pick one movie that's my favorite. So yeah, I want you to ask me one more question. Got one more?
One?
Yeah.
What is it?
He's thinking.
He's been stumped.
Yeah.
Wait, I got an idea.
Okay.
What's your favorite sports?
My favorite sports, I was a total athlete. I loved sports. I'm going to say my husband keeps me up because he loves on all the sports because he loves to watch them. I probably would say basketball.
Because what is yours? Favorite sport?
My favorite sport?
Yeah.
Let's see, probably basketball too.
Yeah. Now I'm a Canadian, so I don't know if my Canadian fans and friends are watching. They might.
Don't get mad you didn't say hockey.
Say you didn't say hockey. So
they'll probably get mad at you if you ever, you got the Predators right there in Nashville.
Well, yes, and of course we keep our fingers crossed. But I played basketball, so I think that's probably why I relate. Although I did play road hockey, and I have a road hockey scar on my leg, so that makes me an authentic Canadian. So.
Bye, thanks.
Bye. You have a wonderful day, young man.
Yeah, he's been on pretty much every episode. He loves it and all that. So if you could co-write with any artist, who would it be?
Chris Stapleton.
That would be a good one.
Yeah.
Now, if you could bring back any artist from the dead to spend one day with you, who would that be?
Merle Haggard. Yeah. I'd like to hang with the hag. Yeah.
That would be awesome. That would be an amazing, and write a couple of songs with him. Bring the old to the new.
When I wrote Heartbreak Song with Adam, I looked at him. I said, "I think Merle will be proud of us." So the new single. The two things I said. I'll bet you Chris Stapleton had cut this, and then I said, "And Merle Haggard, I think he'd be proud of us."
Love that. So, what's a song you've heard that you thought, "Man, I wish I wrote that"?
Oh boy, one of my favorite songs of all time is "I Can't Make You Love Me If You Don't." The Bonnie Raitt song.
Oh, it's a beautiful song.
If you listen to that song, there's not a wasted word on that song. It is so good. And then two of my other favorites, Better Man and Girl Crush.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, That
Such a good play on words with the girl crush.
Yes, such a great, just like brilliant, and Better Man just really, really struck me. Of course, why is the band's slipping my mind right now? I freaking love this band, and of course, they're slipping my mind.
Little Big Town.
Thank you. I just love those guys, and
They're great.
I have a little bit of dyslexia and some attention deficit stuff, and sometimes I'm hyperactive, so my brain's always going like nonstop, and so I apologize to Little Big Town, but those two songs of theirs to me are, and I loved Peter Pan by Kelsey Ballerini.
Oh, that one's beautiful.
Fabulous.
I love that one.
Well, there's some wonderful, wonderful songs out there nowadays. It kind of, country music is not going to be what it was 20 years ago, folks. The young generation is going to bring their new spin on it, and admittedly, there's stuff that, back then there was stuff probably we didn't like, but you
well, that's like when we watched that whole series called Country Music
on PBS.
On the PBS, he
Ken Burns.
He talked about during a Johnny, because a lot of people today will point to Johnny Cash, Merle, and all that as that's real country. That's true. If it's not like that, it's not country. And I always have to point out that based on the past, they weren't country when they came out.
First
started. Every generation's the same.
And also, music comes from the individual's life, from their place, how they grew up, what influenced them, what environment they were in. So you can be a farm kid now, be as country as they get, and be tuning into all kinds of music from one end of the spectrum to the other. And although you ultimately are going to maybe be drawn towards country music, you're going to bring in all those influences consciously. That's sort of like what I did. My mom and dad were country music singers, and they were very, very traditional. But my mom grew up on one radio station, and had no TV, and then I came along and I'm listening to Soul Train and American Bandstand and the Grand Ole Opry. And when it came time for me to write songs and make records, I brought in all of those influences. And so just to say, I think there's a lot of, when you're asking me about songs that I love, I think in today's country music, there's wonderful, wonderful music being made. And I mean, some of it might not be for all of us, because some of it's not, all of it's not for me, but there's some wonderful, wonderful artists, young artists out there that are dreaming the dream and making great music. And it makes me I get all emotional when I see them winning awards and doing well, because I know that they are being authentically who they are as country artists today.
And that's what I like about country. Out of all the other genres out there, countries is about the only genre that I know of that kind of pulls a little bit of every other genre. So you have your rock country, you have your Christian country, you have your traditional country, you have your pop country, so you pull all that in so that no matter who you are, you can find a place in country music.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
And we love that, because we love it all. So
we love it all. I love everything, all genres.
So cool. So cool.
So where do you want to be in 5 years?
Well, I definitely would like to keep doing what I'm doing. It's just to sit in a room with people. I'm fortunate enough that I still get to play in, big festivals and thousands of people. And I also get to play 300-seat theaters and enjoy just the intimacy of that type of an audience. It's magical. So I still tour the whole spectrum of audiences and across North America, and hopefully back into Europe again. I did a lot of traveling around the world, and going to England and Ireland and Scotland and France and places like that are really fun to go and perform. I definitely would like to keep singing and doing my thing, being able to take my guitar out of the case and sit down in front of a mic and sing a few songs. Do look forward to my husband and I maybe spending some time in Italy. We'd like to first off get there for our first time. He's Italian and we've not been there yet, so we want to go. And then we fantasize about, well, would we be able to maybe once a year go spend a month there and just have a little house that we B&B that we rent or something. That's a thought that we would love to do. really, I just hope that I want to be with my husband. I want to be making music. I want to do a little bit of traveling where I can sit and relax and not have to worry about putting my lipstick on to go do a song, and that's kind of where it's at for me. My family, of course, I love my family. Being up in Canada and being able to go hang out with my family is that's the favorite thing for sure.
Love that.
Yes, love it. And what are some things that inspire you?
Boy, I'll tell you, I'm inspired by I'm inspired by watching people overcome.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all overcoming something. It's
I went through 19 years of addictions.
Wow. So
Been
right?
sober 14 years.
That's so great. Well, so watching people overcome is something that's always inspired me. I have three other girlfriends that we call ourselves the Fearless Four.
Oh, I love that.
A variety of age demographic from 50, 60, right in there is our age. And these women inspire me all the time because they're artists, they're writers. One of my friends is an author. One of my friends is a writer. Another one of my friends is an independent businesswoman. And the challenges that they have to face just to keep going. And we'll sit down and talk about it, and I'll watch them overcome. And I'm like, well, by golly, you girls, you know what? I can certainly deal with what I got to deal with to keep going too. And so that's what it really inspires me, is to see my family and my friends overcoming. It inspires me.
And you're talking about what people go through. I remember, we struggle a lot with this show, at least for me, mentally. So a lot of times when I'm at that point where I just feel like, you know what, I'm almost ready to quit, I'll go to YouTube and I'll pull up Steve Harvey Apollo story. It's a 10-minute story. And he tells the story where he basically was quitting and was calling his parents to get money to come back. But all of a sudden everything happened and he got invited to Apollo. It's a really great, if you haven't heard the story, he does it way better than I do. So I'll let him tell it. So
is it his stand-up comedy event, the one, the Apollo, where he's doing the comedy?
Yeah, that was what got. Yeah, because he talks about how he got there though. But basically he was quitting. Yeah. And he ended up saying, you know what, it's over. I'm not going to make it as a comedian. He went to call and he called his voicemail and I said answer machine back then, of course, not voicemail. And he had a message on there saying that, hey, this is so and so from the Apollo. We've heard you. We think you're funny. If you can make it Sunday night, we'd love to have you on the Apollo. This was like Thursday. Or Friday, I think. And then he was like, then he was really devastated because he had $35 in his pocket, is all the money he had, $35. Wow. And he's like, well, I guess that means I'm not supposed to ever make it. He thought that was his sign to quit. And so he calls the machine back up again because he thought maybe the guy said next Sunday. He's like, I probably scrounged enough money to get up there by then. So he calls the machine back, but it has another message on there. And this message was somebody from Jacksonville, Florida, because he was in Tampa at the time, says, hey, Steve, do you have time tonight? We've got an opening here in Jacksonville that pays $150. If you can get here, we would love to have you on. And he calls him up. Long story short, he gets there, he nails it. They say, hey, you know what? You're better than the guy we had for tomorrow night. So if you want to come Saturday night too, we'll get so all of a sudden he has $350. Now he gets a plane ticket and goes up and does his thing.
You know what? That's just wonderful. And you know what? I have a couple of stories like that in my own career that are crazy. That it's just.
Can you tell one?
Well, if I want to say it's interesting when I mentioned Steve Harvey, you weren't kidding that he really was someone that inspires you. Hey, that is so cool. When I mentioned that, when your son asked me about my favorite TV show, well, I will say very quickly, if I can, that the one moment in my career that absolutely changed everything. I was playing a club in Ottawa, Ontario, as we did 6 nights a week. It was Friday night. It was the midnight break before the last set where we would finish at 1:00. I came off the stage. The bartender said, hey, your agent called She wants you to call her back. I called her back. Marilyn Caswell, the Caswell Agency Group. God rest her soul. She was a wonderful woman that did a lot for Canadian artists. So I call her. She says, "Hey, Michelle, there's a festival down the road at noon tomorrow, Saturday afternoon. The noon hour slot band is canceled. Can you guys go?" Well, me and the boys used to like to go across to Ottawa to Hull, Quebec after the 1 o'clock show because they stayed open till 3 o'clock in the morning over there. So that's just across the border. And we would go and we'd hang and listen to bands and carry on. But we had to get up. If we were going to go do this noon hour slot, we'd have to be up and on the road by about 8 o'clock in the morning. So I was like, okay, boys, we're going to bed early tonight. We're going to go do this noon hour slot. Went there, did our gig. I was doing my last song of a 1 hour set. I was doing a song by Exile. Take me to the river, set me on the sand. You know, I used to do, to separate myself from the other girls coming through the clubs, I would do a lot of male vocalist songs.
Oh, wow.
I want to do every song, like, you know, why I don't want to sound like the same band that was there last week and it's going to be there next week. So I would do different songs. So I'm doing my last song of that 1 hour set. And unbeknownst to me, an up and coming singer-songwriter by the name of Rick Giles showed up from Nashville in this little podunk town to see another artist, a guy named Gilles Godard. Now, Gilles Godard now is amazingly successful. He was a great songwriter. Then he got into the publishing world, and now he's the president of Anthem Entertainment, which is one of the biggest companies in the world for entertainment out there. But Rick was going there to see Gilles, to do some writing with him and do some recording for him. And he heard me singing, and he was backstage, and he had just arrived, and I'm doing my last song, and he said, "That man up there has a very interesting voice." And he came around to the front of the stage and saw this little 120-pound, 25-year-old little girl or 23-year-old little girl standing there singing that song. And he introduced himself to me. And his partner, Steve Bogart, and him helped me make my first album. And that album got me my record deal with Arista Records. If Rick Giles had been 3 minutes later, guys, he would have never heard me sing.
Wow.
I do not know if I would have ever made my first album, Do Right By Me. And without that album, I would not have gotten, I'm going to get emotional again. I would not have gotten my record deal with Arista Records.
And I love stories like that because I, you know, and I think that's where, you know, one thing I've learned from interviewing almost 600 people, from people that are rising to people who are at the top and been at the top, there's always a common denominator. The work ethic is all the same. They work really hard. That's a given. But on top of that, there have almost everybody that we've talked to, there have been several lucky breaks that they get to where if it did not happen in the way it happened, they would not exist. Yep. And that's the part that I think that people don't get is those breaks don't come if you're not working.
If you don't show up, you're not going to get the break. That's exactly right. Well, you know, I did a beautiful interview with T.G. Shepherd yesterday. And my gosh, guys, his story is fascinating. He's actually writing a book, and I cannot wait to read it.
We'll have to get him back on because we've had him on the show.
Yeah.
I don't know if he told what all he told you, but that man's story is fascinating. But we were, so he's writing the book, so I'll just shut my mouth and let him tell the story. But him and I were talking about that, how in fact it's almost like you're not in control. It's almost like you get on but you just keep showing up though, and then this happens, and then that happens, and then you know, it's not overnight. You know, I had one thing happen, then 2 years later this happened, and 2 years later that happened, and then you know the Do Right By Me record was recorded in 1985, and it was released in 87, and I didn't get my record deal with Arista Records till 1989. Wow. So again, if there's any young artists listening, you know, in this day and age, it's almost everything happens so quickly. That's really it's not really reality. I mean, there are cases where people do sort of happen overnight. But I was talking to a young artist recently, and they're so frustrated because they've been doing this for a year now. Nothing happened. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You know, please don't up on yourself like that. Doesn't happen.
That's like even for where we are today. I remember back in 2013, she always followed my passions and they never work out. We felt it all, probably 100 different business ideas.
Oh, yeah.
So back in 2013, I remember, her passion was songwriting. We don't do music, but we do lyrics. And I was like, you know what? Let's just see what happens. Let's write together and follow a little bit of your passion. So we wrote like 300 songs in like a year, like that. But I also started realizing it'll never get in people's hand without the music. So I started friending up and coming, because I knew we wouldn't get something like that until a Blake Sheltoners. But if I can become friends with people that are up and coming, then this might actually help. And then as I'm starting to learn some of these people, I'm like, my God, these people can sing. These people, they need to be noticed. And then next thing you know, I launched a website called New Country Buzz. And it started to take off. We even got to interview Kelsey Ballerini before she was Kelsey back then, back in 2015. And then it got so much work because we weren't doing a show like this because you didn't have the technology. It was, I would record it and I would type it out. And then
the transcription.
And it got so much work. I just said, this is just not worth it to me. I love the interview. I hate the other part. So we shut it down. And then by 2018, I was telling Sandy, I was like, that domain, New Country Buzz, has never been bought. We should buy it again and finish what we started. So she said, let's do it. So we relaunched in 2018. Then in 2019, I was like, I think it's time for us to do a show because I've been watching all the other things happen. I was like, I could tell this is where everything's going. And she was like, what'd you say to me?
I said, what would we call it?
I was like, what else? The Chris and Sandy show.
And I said, you're crazy because nobody knows.
And she thought I was crazy. I was like, but people can get to know who we are. We're in the internet age and all that. Yeah. And that was and the one thing that she made me promise when we started, don't ever ask her to do video.
Oh.
Yes.
And what's funny is October of 2020, I'll never forget the day because she comes to me and she wants our show to go to that next level. And she says, do you think that video would help our show? We've been doing video ever since.
Yep. Yeah. Good on you. Good for you guys.
But that's kind of again, like if people see what we're doing now, it's not like just happened. It's been since 2013.
Yeah, it's one step leads to another step.
Just like with you. I mean, I love that. So as we come to a close here, what advice would you give that person that's like frustrated, like you just said?
Yeah. You just have to show up. You have to, I think you have to know what it is that you want, or more importantly, what do you want your sound to be like? What is it in your voice or your point of view that might be a little different than other people, that will help to separate you somehow? I mean, you need to find what it is authentically about yourself that separates you somehow. With me, it was the deeper voice, and if you've got a tone or something in your voice that's unique, use it if you can find a way to but it has to come easy and naturally. You can't create that,
Right. Mm-hmm.
I guess really,
like there is no other Gabby Barrett.
Right. Right. That's that simple. So, you have to, so if you can find something that's unique about your voice, find something that's unique about your point of view, or have a point of view, maybe, you have to get out there and perform. You have to find out, do people respond to you? If people start responding to you, and then a club, an agent starts showing up, or a club owner, they want to start hiring you. If you're out there, I had a friend recently who got out of the business. They've been doing it for 30 years.
Wow.
Nothing ever showed up for them. They never got an agent. They never got a record deal. They never got it. And, it finally occurred to them, God, as much as I wanted this, it was not going to be my path. So if you're young, you want to get out there and you want to find out if this is your path.
Mm-hmm.
Can you handle it? Can you do what you got to do? Are people going to respond to you? You know, when you contact an agent and have them come and see your show, do they say, yeah, man, we can represent you, or do you not hear back? You know, I mean, you have to and understand that in the business is going to be no's before there's yeses, and so on and so forth. But you got to get out there and you got to find out if you love it. You got to find out if people respond to you, and you got to be patient and understand that. And unless you're, you know, Leanne Rhymes, stuff doesn't happen overnight. So you've got to be patient, you know, and it doesn't happen when you're, you know, you know, again, it just doesn't happen overnight.
Great. You want to finish the last question?
Yeah. What would you like for your legacy to be in music? What would you like to be known and remembered for?
Wow, those are those questions, eh? Well, no, I don't think about that sort of stuff a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something that's always been important to me is respect.
Yeah.
I want people to know that as a person in country music, I've always wanted to honor the legends and the songs. To me, country music was always about the songs.
Mm-hmm.
I've always tried to, along with having some fun with some of my fun songs, I've always tried to find and record great songs, because to me, that's what country music is about.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I've always tried to come from an authentic place. You know, with the exception of He Would Be 16, which I've never been pregnant and I've never had to make the difficult decision that the woman in that song made to give a child up for adoption.
Yeah.
Right.
That is the one song that I don't know about personally, but all the rest of my songs come from a personal point of view. I've always tried to be authentic, and so being respected, and I didn't, you know, there's compromise that you have to make, but didn't make too many compromises, you know.
Love that. So tell everybody how they can find you.
As long as you don't come knocking on my door. I was going to say something silly like, well, I live. No, I don't mean that. Although I have had a couple of people show up here and I'm like, really?
Oh, wow.
Not good.
And I like got my pajamas on and my hair's like this. And I'm like, okay. Well, you can find me at www.michelle-wright.com. That's my website. But Facebook, just and you know what? If you put Michelle Wright in the Google search, in the Googles,
you'll find you.
I come up in a whole variety of ways. So, but Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and my website.
Love it. You know, we really enjoyed having you today, and we look forward to having you back.
Thank you, guys. Well, God bless you, and thank you so much. And carry on. It's been my pleasure. My pleasure.
Pleasure.